By the time we got to 16, heroin had just sort of started hitting the streets of Liverpool. So then you had a divided community. You had one side, there was people selling drugs, the other side, people were taking it. But as you get older, you get battered down, told, you can't do that because you're not meant for that. And this is the problem with young kids. If you've got a dream or a goal that you're working towards, like Christopher and Leighton knew what they wanted, no one was taking that away from them.
Hi everybody, my name's Stephen Panther and this is the Great in You podcast from the Great Schools Trust. I'm here today with a really good friend of mine, Angela Preston, so hopefully you're going to enjoy her story. Just a reminder, the podcast is about people that have experienced trauma in their lives, people that have experienced difficult situations, and from that they've brought about something positive that's going to help people, mostly young people, but adults as well. So welcome, Angela.
Thanks, Steve. You okay?
Really good to have you with us.
Yeah, good to be here.
So, so today it's just going to be about us kind of chatting about, obviously, the theme of the podcast, really, the great in you. And I know that you've experienced some pretty difficult things, especially in the last, 5-10 years.
Yeah.
So today we're just going to talk to you about about what happened and, how you came out of, you're still kind of in it, aren't you, really?
Yeah.
So what I thought I'd do is I want people to know a little bit about you as a person. And kind of, what your background is as well before we talk about some of that trauma that you experienced and you're still going through from a family point of view. So tell us about, your upbringing, where were you brought up? What was that like? What was it like for you? And any problems, anything that you kind of dealt with when you were younger?
Yeah. So I am one of 6 girls. Got 5 sisters. It was always first up, best dressed. And we grew up. We didn't have an awful lot. We were quite poor, really. My mum and dad both worked. My dad worked on the demolition, and my mum was a cleaner. So you can imagine but we were also in that group where we didn't qualify for benefits or anything. We didn't get free dinners or anything like that. So we was quite poor. I grew up on an estate called Drag-ridden. Don't know whether you've heard of that estate in Liverpool. It was meant to be based on a fishing village in Cornwall. It definitely wasn't based on a fishing village in Cornwall. But it was supposed to be really nice, brand new estate for people from the 4 squares all came up to live on it. And it was all different. It was sort of alleyways and stuff. So in the beginning, when we were growing up, I moved there when I was 5, and it was lovely. It was very community spirited. Everyone knew everybody. It was a great big massive estate. So we were Radcliffe Walk, but then it went on to Fitzroy Way, Compton Way, lots of different names because it was quite vast, the area of it. And then when we got to 16, heroin started. So before that, it was great. All families would mix together. People borrowed sugar and stuff like that. They'd borrow milk off each other. Really, nice connection with everyone. By the time we got to 16, heroin had just sort of started hitting the streets of Liverpool. So then you had a divided community. You had one side, there was people selling drugs. The other side, people were taking it. I was in between. I was terrified. My dad was really strict, really, really strict. So I wouldn't go anywhere near the drug dealers, and I wouldn't have took drugs because I was terrified of what would happen when I got in. Thank God I had this dad who was, even though I didn't like him very much, I was really close to my mum. But thank God for him, he kept all of us on the straight path. So at that age, all the young girls started sitting with the drug dealers. And my eldest sister, who's 10 years older than me, 9.5 years older than me, she lived at the other end of the estate, and she'd not long become a mum. So I had to walk from one end to the other. And the dealers would actually pick the flags up off the street and throw them at me. What they used to say is I thought it was better than them. I didn't, I had holes in my shoes and holes in my socks. I didn't think it was better. I feared the wrath of my dad. That's what stopped me from getting involved. And still to this day, I think, God, I am so grateful that my dad was the way he was. My mum was very different. She was very laid back, very loving. And God help her, wouldn't have known if we'd have been involved in anything like that, so it wouldn't have been any good for us. So my dad's strictness is what kept us all on the straight path, and all of us have done extremely well, the 6 of us. So it was difficult growing up with not an awful lot, and then you go into schools in that area and you're not expected to do anything other than what your parents have done. But from a little girl, I was about 5 when I started writing dreams and wishes down. I had this great imagination. My sister used to call me Hans Christian Andersen because I always had a story to tell. And I'd be thinking, when I get old, I'm going to do this. And then as I got to like 10, I started watching, I don't know whether you remember it, Black Beauty.
Yes, remember the theme tune.
Yeah, loved it. And I'd get lost in that. I would get lost in that programme for hours and hours. So that's where I started dreaming that. I want more out of life.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to go and work in America. I wanted to do all the things that all kids do. But as you get older, you get battered down, told, you can't do that because you're not meant for that. You've got to fit into this box. Your mum was a cleaner, so you're going to be a cleaner. Or at best, work on Tesco's till.
Yeah. So the aspirations in the area that you came from, very similar to mine where I came from, was that you had your lane and you had to stick in it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very similar. I was the same as you. I had aspirations. I thought I don't actually belong here. Yeah. I felt as strongly as that.
Yeah.
And I spent quite a number of my years in my teens trying to move away.
Yeah.
Move to different places. Go and work by the sea. Go and work. In Cornwall and Bournemouth and Blackpool and places like that.
I never even got that far.
But I always got kind of dragged back.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, did you have any kind of mentors did you have any role models?
Yeah, I loved my mum.
Yeah.
My mum, I still can't really talk about it. My mum was an absolutely fabulous mum.
Yeah.
So although we were poor and my dad was really strict, we had a great foundation to believe in ourselves, to be able to, change our path, change our lives. And then my elder sister, who's just retired a few years ago. She was a teacher,
Yeah.
And she was sort of my role model too, that at 29, she went back to college, so went to university. And I thought, well, we've got the same blood running right through us. So I became a self-employed agent for a finance company when I was about 21, 22, about 23, 24, after I'd had my first son.
So that was a pretty good job.
It was self-employed, really. It was.
Right.
I had the gift of the gab as well, so it was all about selling.
Yeah.
So I could literally sell anything. So I could make money from it, but it was never money motivated. That was my problem. If I'd been money motivated, I'd probably been a multi-millionaire by now.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. I was more results driven.
It's interesting that, because I'm not money motivated, even though I like nice things.
Yeah.
We don't do what we do to be millionaires, do we? We do what we do to help and support people and to.
I get more rewards out of seeing that I've supported someone to make a better choice in life. That's where my reward comes. The money is a bonus.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. So I started off as a self-employed agent, but then when she became a teacher, I thought, we've got the same blood. I can go to the top, because if she can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And my mum and dad pushed us to do that. So when I went off to be a development manager then, and then I was a development, before I became a development manager, I was an agent and I earned a lot of money. And I went to the area manager and I said to him, can I apply for the development manager job? And he's like, you go on a communication skills course first and then we'll consider you. I was like, so I went away and I learned, and I thought, I'm going to sit in your seat. And I did.
Where do you think the motivation to reach higher than what you were, so like the aspirational aspect of things, where did the motivation to do that come from, do you think? I know you said that your mum was a great role model. Your dad was, so this was after you'd had a child?
This was after, because I'd gone from job to job, and then when Christopher was born, and I think Clayton was born, well, they were all born actually.
Yeah.
When they were all born, when Christopher was born, I looked into his eyes and I thought, you are not having the same life as I've had. Yeah. Although we had great foundation as we got older, I wanted to be, when I was very little, a gymnast. Yeah. I loved gymnastics. Yeah. I wasn't academically clever. I wanted to be a gymnast, and we never had the money to pay for me to be a gymnast. So that dream went out the window, because you'd have to start early.
So like your life chances were limited, weren't the way you grew up?
Yeah.
Very similar to mine.
It was just a big, poor. Yeah, a big estate, council estate. And then when drugs became prominent in the 80s, more or less every other person was on drugs. Yeah. And I was lucky well, my mum and dad were lucky that none of us touched it. 6 girls out of 6 girls not touching drugs.
Yeah.
My elder sister also got pregnant at 16, so that sort of took me down a path where I don't want to get pregnant, don't want to go with boys that young. I mean, she became a teacher at 29, but her getting pregnant probably made it more difficult for us. My dad became more strict because he's thinking, you know, the first one's got pregnant, it can happen to the next one. So that sort of helped us as well, because it made us realise how easy your path can change, your life can change.
Because you had like a real life example in front of you, didn't you?
Yeah, and she was a fabulous mum. I mean, she, you know, she became a teacher. After she had 3 kids, she got married and got divorced quite early. She lost a little boy, and he was only 11 months old. So she'd been through an awful lot. So her resilience to overcome, and then seeing my mum overcome resilience and overcome challenges and build resilience helped me to go, you know what, I don't want this for my life.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not having it for my kids. My kids are going to have opportunities.
So although there was that suffering there, you saw real life examples of and lessons, I suppose, didn't you?
Yeah.
Lessons in kind of, well, you know, this could happen to me. I don't want that. And I think you're right, when your children come along, it puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
The dynamics change, don't they? Because
my son was born in my final year of university, and I straight A'd it the final year.
Because you knew.
He was the difference between me getting a good degree and a brilliant degree. And I can relate to what you're saying there, as far as you need to try that bit harder, don't you?
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just you anymore, is it?
Yeah,
you know?
They're more important than you, aren't they?
Course,
you know, your life is your life till your first child comes along, and after that, you become bottom of the pile. You become bottom, and that's the way it should be as a parent, because that's what I was taught by my parents.
Absolutely.
So from that, I just wanted to climb the ladder to give them opportunities. You know, I wanted to go and work in America at 16, and I applied to be a nanny. Gave me mum the letter, and she never ever posted it. And I think, you stop me from going to America. But I wanted to make sure my kids had that opportunity to go. You know, my mum was fearful of losing one of her kids and them not coming back, anything happening. But I thought, that's not happening to mine.
Do you think that, obviously you've given examples there of you trying to get out of the area. You spoke about the drug dealers when you were growing up, saying you think you're better than everybody else and throwing things at you. I think that's something that you shouldn't regret, because I think it's aspirational, isn't it? You look at somewhere where you're from and you think, am I going to thrive in this environment?
Yeah.
I think it sounds like what you did, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like what you did is you had those aspirations to move out of that as well, because you knew that actually it might lead to something negative.
Exactly. I loved it there as a kid, but as I got to 16 and I started finding my own path, I started working in a printers, and I was getting good money. I was getting £60 a week. That was a lot of money then. That's nearly 40 years ago. So that was loads of money. I was giving my mum something like £10 a week, and the first thing I did, I always wanted to be like Farrah Fawcett, and I had dark hair.
Did you get the hair?
Yeah. The first lot of wages that I got, I went and got my hair dyed blonde.
Nice.
And I got made stuff. My dad, he's like, you can't dye your hair. I was like, well, I don't want to be brown. So I've always had my own way. Everything's always been on my terms. So when I was a kid, I learned to read by reading the births, deaths and marriages in the Echo. And I'm not even kidding when I say that. So the Echo used to get delivered at 4 o'clock every night. My dad would come in from work, and that Echo would have to be page to page, not touched. But I'd run in the bathroom, sit in the bathroom. I was only about 9 or 10. Sit in the bathroom with it and read the births, marriages and deaths. I think that's where I started learning about empathy and compassion. Yeah, from that age.
Because you saw people's
and
obituaries basically, aren't they? Yeah, people's lives.
That's what they are. But it was called, in Liverpool words, it was births, marriages and deaths. And I'd be going, and I'd be crying. And I'd think, why am I doing this to myself? But it taught me to read. It taught me compassion, taught me empathy, and I'd have to put that back the way it was found. And one time,
discipline, all
those things. And one time he came in early and caught me with the Echo, and there was absolute murder in the house. I'm like, he said, you can't read that Echo, it's not for kids. And I'm like, well, I do, I want to read it. So from that little kid, I always had that aspiration to be able to do more.
Do you know, as you started to have those aspirations, did your dad shift his views a little bit as he got a little bit older?
No, he
was
never
always
got on.
Quite strict and always.
Yeah, always strict, and always, because I was always the one that pushed boundaries because from a little kid. And even when I met my husband, he's like, thank God, you've turned up. One of them. He said he's going to be like Shirley Valentine. He's going to do a runner because you're too difficult to handle.
Yeah.
Because I've always had my own mind, and I always knew that no one was going to command how I worked or demand how I worked.
Yeah.
I would do everything
So
on
you were
my
strong.
terms.
I think you probably got that strength from your
Me
mum
mum.
and your sisters, didn't you?
Yeah,
It's that
yeah.
strong woman, you know,
Yeah.
that can achieve anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It's that self-belief, isn't it? Like, as strict as my dad was, that belief came from both him and my mum,
Yeah.
that you can do more with your life.
Yeah.
And I think he could see that in us, and that's why he was strict. He was
Yeah.
pushing us that little
So it
bit
came
further.
from a place of love.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. But I still didn't like him.
No. but then you've got to ask yourself, would you have, I asked it myself this sometimes, would I have, if I hadn't have been through what I've been through, would I be the same person? I wouldn't have been through the same things, but would I have the same character?
Yeah, no, you
It
wouldn't.
sounds like the same with you.
Well, I've raised my sons exactly the way my dad raised me. My mum and dad, exactly the same way.
Yeah.
I wasn't soft. Like, my mum was really soft-hearted, and she'd have let us do anything in her own. She wouldn't have known because she lived in her own little world. I've raised my sons the way my dad raised us, really strict upbringing. And to fall into the path that we fell into with my youngest was just, we just didn't see it coming.
Well, that's why, that's one of the big reasons we're here today.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we got introduced to each other was about the work that you do with young people.
Yeah.
And part of the reason, or a big part of the reason you do the work with the young people that you do, and obviously adults, is that you want others to benefit from what you've experienced, from young people to not go through what you and your family and your son has been through, and his siblings as well, because everybody's gone through it, haven't they?
Yeah.
So let's start off so tell us a little bit about your 3 children then. So, and then we'll come on to your son.
So the 3, Christopher's the eldest. He's 35 in October, and he's moved to America in 2 weeks, which is devastating for us, but fabulous for him. He's a data analyst in trading. Yeah. He's a trader, so he's going to open an office up for his company. Leighton's a police officer. He's been in the middle of all of this, what's been going on in Liverpool at the moment. Yeah. And Joseph was in recruitment with Christopher. They've all worked in America. Yeah. All 3 of them went and lived my dream, what I wanted to do. When they left school, and Leighton went to university, the other 2 started work, but all 3 of them decided they wanted to go to America. So Christopher taught football right across California because he was very good at football. Yeah. Leighton went to Frost Valley in New York and became a lifeguard, and then got promoted to village chief. When he told us he was getting promoted, he was like,
what do you think the attraction was for to go to America then? I
think it was probably me saying it all, because I'd said to them, when I was young I wanted to go to America, and we'd go to Florida. We'd been a few times to Florida, and they loved it, and I'd talk about. So you never
forgot that then? You never forgot when you were 16 and you were like,
I always wanted to go. So I think all 3 of them thought, let's see what it's like. Is it what my mum thought it was going to be like, and everything. So Leighton got promoted from, he finished university and carries on for 5 years, and he was a lifeguard, and then he said, we'd like you to be VC, and he rang us up, and I'm like, oh, what's that, vice chairman? He's like, no mum, it's village chief. I thought he was going to be the vice chairman of Forest Valley. But so then Joseph got to 18 and he did the same, but Joseph had already started with his mental health and stuff before that, and by going to New York, we thought, that'll be good for him. So all 3 of them done really, really well. And then Christopher got Joseph work down in London as in recruitment, and that's really where it all started.
It all changed.
But before
before you go on to that a little bit then, so just very briefly then, what were they all like as children?
Leighton was the quietest out of 3 of them, really the most quietest, gentle child. And if I'm totally honest, he's still quite gentle to this day. Believe it or not, even as a police officer, he's quite gentle in his manner. Christopher was always very driven. Yeah.
Middle child?
Oldest, Christopher.
I was the oldest, sorry. Yeah.
He knew that he wanted to be a millionaire at 35. His first car was going to be a Mazda. He wanted to work in London, and he knew what he wanted. And all of that has happened for Christopher because he worked towards it. He was focused. Leighton, everywhere we went, he bought a police car. Everywhere we went from a child. And he did exactly the same, because when I said before, I was writing dreams and wishes down that turned into goals. Yeah. And I didn't know at that time, at 10, it was goal setting. Yeah. But what I was doing, I was building myself up to be able to achieve. And I just passed that down. Joseph was very different from a child. we used to think he was miserable and serious. But when I look back now, because I'm more equipped, all the work that I've done over the years, all the courses I've done, I know now Joseph had mental health problems as a child. And he's also got ADHD.
But did he ever get any help for that when he was a child?
No, because we didn't know then.
Different, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah, it wasn't. He's 30 in December.
Yeah.
So we didn't know. We used to say, oh, smile, don't be miserable.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, which now I recognise. And my 5th book now, it's called A Mother's Pain, and that's what I'm working on. Yeah. And it's to help parents to recognise those traits, those signs of that, what's going through on your kids and what's going to happen if you don't get it addressed.
Because it's challenging, isn't it, for parents? Because say for us, even that work in education, people would assume that we would be able to recognise things, or would. But I think when it's your own child, sometimes it's difficult because you don't know what you're looking for. Yeah. You're a parent that hasn't experienced those types of things, so you don't know what you're looking for. You don't know what the triggers are, and then there's those parents that kind of do know what they're looking for, but there's that emotional aspect to it where it's, that's, that couldn't happen to my child, or that couldn't.
Unless you admit it, they're not going to get the help. So with Joseph, it was, he was very creative from a little child, and always full of empathy. I mean, I still pay money to the NSPCC, and that came from Joseph sitting in front of the TV when he was 3 and seeing kids on the advertisements and saying to me, Mum, can I give my pocket money to that? And this is 27 years later, I still pay that money in Joseph's name. Wow. Because I started, and I used to pay, I started off paying something like £2 a month, and I'll pay £5 a month. And
do you know, out of your 3 boys then, was he the most empathetic?
Yeah, Leighton's the most gentle, but Joseph was the most empathetic, and in terms of people pleasing. Yeah. So it was always, when I look back now, he had all those signs of just wanting to be liked, trying to make people like and be a people pleaser, do anything to be liked. All of those signs were there. And now I think, why didn't I recognise them all those years ago? And the majority of people that I've worked with in recovery from addiction, and people who are potentially going down that path, majority of those people have got all the same behaviours, all the same traits. And I've worked with a lot over the last 6 years. Every one of them have got the same behaviours, but every one of them are unbelievably creative. Every single one of them. My son, my Joseph, could sit here now, look around this room, and he could write a poem on it. Yeah. He writes poetry now. It's because he's able to deal with his emotions in a way that he's releasing them out of his mind. So if we can teach that to kids, and that's what I do a lot of the time, a lot of the work that I do is based on creativity. It's to find that creative genius, because every child has got it.
Well, before because I know you do so much good work now, but as a result of what's happened. So obviously I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your upbringing and your childhood and your relationship with your parents. And then obviously we've talked about your children as well and the differences between them and, etc. So now let's focus on Joseph then. So he went to London. Yeah,
he was, so he'd been backwards and forwards to America 3 times. He's worked in New York, he's worked in Kentucky, he's worked in Boston. And then he came back, I think it was about 2018, 2019. And he got a job in London. Nigel Franks was the company he worked for in recruitment.
So what was he like at that stage? So he'd been to America. In your eyes, had things gone well? Were there any dramas? Were there any issues?
He's always wanted attention. Yeah. Always wants attention. And I've always given him attention, because for me, no job is more important than being a mum. No. I'm all right as a wife. I'm not very good at cooking. I'm good at cleaning and washing and stuff like that. I'm rubbish cook. But a mum is the most important job for me. So for me, my kids, so I don't know whether you were the same, but when I was growing up, you didn't get told you were loved. You just knew you were loved. But I didn't want that for my kids. Yeah. My kids, if I have one conversation with them a day or 10, every conversation finishes with, I love you. Every conversation.
I'm like that with my son now. I didn't get told that much when I was younger, but with my son now, he's 15, 16, and I still tell him all the time.
I just think it's so important. I still do it now. I finish conversations with, I love you. I finish a text with, I love you, kid. Yeah. And Christopher's a dad.
So obviously you're a great mum, aren't you? It's clear that.
Well, it's the most important role. So for Joseph he started with mental health when he left school, before he actually left school, we had him in Lippe. He loved acting, and Stephen Graham is my cousin, and he loved Stephen Graham.
Yeah.
So he wanted to sort of go down that path. We put him in Lippe. He was there till he was about 14, and then he said, don't want to go no more. So I said, okay. I've never sort of forced anything on them, and I tried to get him to go to university because he actually left school with 19 GCSEs and a business diploma.
19?
19. Unbelievably intelligent. So we know now he's on the spectrum. We know that. But he didn't really know after leave. When he was young, he wanted to be an actor, but then he'd jump about. And this is the problem with young kids. If you've got a dream or a goal that you're working towards, like Christopher and Leighton knew what they wanted, no one was taking that away from them. Their path was forged. They knew if they took a little sidestep, their dream would be gone. And this is what I teach the kids today, to always work towards a goal. With Joseph, he wants to be an actor, then he wants to be in the army. He always had a different goal.
So he jumped from things then.
Yeah.
So when he went to America then, so what, as a mum, obviously you were thinking, right, he's in America.
Yeah.
He's here. How long was that period of time he was in America?
2 to 3 months. So they went in the June, they were home by the end of August, beginning of September. The first time he went with Leighton, so I was all right with that because Leighton would look after him. The second time he went on his own. And then the third time he got engaged and went to live in Kentucky. He went to live in Kentucky the second time, then he went to Boston.
So was that the first time that you were a bit like, oh, I'm a little bit... So what I'm trying to determine is, he went to America, and just after that...
he was fine.
Yeah, he came back and he came to London.
He came back from America, then he started working in Liverpool the first time, then he went back to America, and then he came back and worked again. Then the third time he came back from America, and that's when he went to work in London. So he was in Nigel Franks. He got headhunted because he was very good, like Christopher could sell anything.
I suppose I didn't ask you that very well, but were there any, from him first going to America to him starting his job in London, because it was a London thing that changed the direction of his life,
nothing really bad. Mental health had been a little bit of a sticky topic. We tried to get him, we got him seen to and stuff, but nothing you could go, this is really bad. Then he'd been out one night and had a drink and fell out with someone and little bits like that, but nothing to the extreme of what happened after he come back from America and then went to work in London. He'd been working in London a good 12 months.
Before anything negative happened?
Before we found out. And
was there any, so how often did he come home to you?
Every 3 months at the most.
Did you have any concerns when he came home?
No.
Was there any differences in him? No.
Steve, nothing, because Christopher lived in London, so he quite often meets up with Christopher. They lived literally around the corner. They worked in London together and they lived in Essex by each other. Joseph rented a room. Christopher had his own place. So they were always together, and then we'd often go down. And then Christmas 2019, we're a very close family, and we all went to the Cotswolds and we rented a lovely log cabin on a lake, and we had Christmas there. And then Joseph, Christopher and Gemma all went back to London. Me, Barry and Leighton went back to Liverpool. And it was in the January was the first time where he rang me up and said, I've got no rent. Can you pay me rent? I haven't been paid. And I paid the rent for him because I thought,
he's
he
never
hasn't
done
been
that
paid.
before. He's never asked for it.
And then 4 weeks later, wasn't it probably 3 weeks later, he rang up and said, I've got problems, I'm in addiction and I need help. I hadn't spoke to him because I'd noticed a little different over the 3 weeks. I wasn't talking to him, so I blocked him because I thought, I'm not dealing with this no more. So he phoned Barry and said, will you please ask me mum to speak to me? I got on the phone and he was rotten drunk. It was 8:30 in the morning. So FaceTimed him and I said to him, let me look at you. And I went to pieces. Steve literally went to pieces. He was just a mess. I said, show me what drinks you've got. And he got the drinks. He had a bottle of martini and a bottle of vodka, and he was drinking them straight. I said, pour them all down the sink, and I'll pay for a train ticket for you to come home tonight. You're going to have to sleep that off, and I'll pay for the train ticket for you to come home, and I'll meet you at the train station. I couldn't work that day because all that was on my mind is he going to wake up? So we get him on the train, got him home, and we got him into rehab here. He went into rehab, I won't mention the rehab, but he went in for supposedly 18 weeks. But we were still quite naive. I'd been working with people in recovery.
As you would be.
Yeah. I'd been working, my adult programme, I'd been working with people in recovery from addiction. but it wasn't as in-depth as what it is now. Had I been a bit more aware of the situation of addiction and stuff then, I'd have probably knew how bad Joseph was.
Yeah.
So it has obviously been going on longer than he'd been letting on, because he was living in London, we wasn't seeing it. So he said, we got him in for the 18 weeks, and after 12 weeks he decided, I'm clean, I can do this. So I said, if you come out after 12 weeks, we're done, because we're not going through anything. We're not doing this. Because I'd paid this £800 rent, but I'd been giving him little bits before, not realising that.
But was his plan always to go back down to London then?
No, he decided he didn't want to go back to London.
Okay.
Didn't want to go back, and he wanted to stay home because he felt that was hindering him, because he was on his own most of the time.
Yeah.
By this time, he'd changed jobs. And he probably was in London a bit longer, and he'd moved house as well. So where he was first living in Essex, he'd moved into the city and was living in a Hyde Park, gorgeous area, but was on his own and didn't really know anyone. So felt like on a Friday and Saturday night, the only thing he could do was go to the pub. Yeah. And that's how he fell into it, really. And then eventually we got him into the rehab, and he was there for 12 weeks. So we naively thought, 12 weeks, he's been... he's all right, he'd get through it. He came out, he was clean for a little bit. He was staying in a supported living house accommodation.
So was this drugs and alcohol then?
Yeah, this was cocaine and alcohol.
So he hadn't had a drink or any drugs for 12 weeks?
No, nothing. While you're in the rehab, nothing. And then he stayed clean in this supported living accommodation for about 6 months, going to these NA meetings, AA meetings. And I never, ever wanted him to go to them, because I had heard so much about these NA meetings that they have people in recovery from addiction and people still in addiction in the same meetings. And for me, that didn't sit right, because if you're having a bad day as a recovering addict, you're going to go, if someone offers you a drug, you're going to go, yeah, go on, I'll take that. And also the language they use, they say, say your name's Tony. Hi, I'm Tony. I'm an addict. No, you're not. What you label yourself with, you become. You actually become.
I've heard you say that to our young people.
Yeah, you become. Yeah. So if you're sitting there going, I am Tony, I'm an addict, you will go, well, I'm being labelled it anyway. I might as well still do it. Yeah. So I say, no, you are not. And I ended up arguing with people over it. I said, you're not an addict anymore. That was your past. This is your future. Focus on your future. So all of that language didn't sit right with me. No. And Joseph was literally indoctrinated, and it became like a cult, and he felt like he had to be there all the time. So no matter what I was saying, it wasn't sinking in with him. Personal development changes your mindset, changes your life, because it's changed mine beyond any recognition. This is a kid from the Radcliffe Walk estate, biggest council estate probably in Liverpool, becoming an international bestseller. And launching my first book in America. Yeah. That was through attending all of the personal development courses and programs. Yeah. And that's what I was teaching to people coming out of addiction into recovery. And it was working. But Joseph saying, no, you've got to listen to what they're experts.
So just to be clear then, you were working in that field when that happened to Joseph?
I'd started working with people in recovery from addiction about 4 years before.
So I'm going to ask you now then, so obviously we've talked about Joseph, so I'm going to talk about the feelings and how it impacted people around. How, obviously you were in that profession. How did you feel at the time then when all that came out? What were the main feelings that you had, and also the people around you, your family? So what did the two other boys think? What were the types of conversations that you were having?
It was a lot of anger. Yeah, at the thought that it wasn't in the beginning, Steve. If I'm honest, we thought we could fix him. Yeah, I thought naively, I'm his mum, and I know, and I can fix him. Yeah, I couldn't. That chemical imbalance in his brain, I couldn't fix. I am not an expert in that field, and that needed to be fixed. Yeah. And he wouldn't go to doctors, he wouldn't go anywhere. He was just lost in this NA, AA. Then he'd come out of it. There was a little quote done on Facebook. It's about some people come out of the rain to get dry. They've got to come out in all weathers. And it's so true. Yeah. Joseph would come out for a little bit, get himself clean and go straight back into it. So the anger and the pain and the arguments, because I was really angry that he had so much potential and he was throwing it away.
Yeah.
I was really angry with him that Joseph could have changed the world with what he had, but he was choosing this path. And sometimes the path can choose you. And I think that's what happens with Joseph, because he's had mental health and he's felt low about himself. And even those I love you, I love you, I love you wasn't working with him. Yeah. He still felt that he wasn't good enough for anything. And one time he's tried to kill himself a number of times. He tried to throw himself in front of a train. This is all the mental health stuff before we found out about any addiction. And we got to the train station in time, me and Leighton, and there was a police officer sitting with him, and we literally had to sit on him, got him to the Royal Hospital. And when my husband come down to the hospital, me, Barry and Leighton are there, and they said, this is the psychiatrist, and this is what's dangerous when people are in this kind of language. He could feel inferior to yourselves because you're all successful and he's not. I said, how do you know he's not successful? How do you know?
Yeah.
Well, going by what's happened, I said, don't you dare
so he made a massive assumption.
Use that on my son.
Yeah.
Don't you dare. I said, if my son is a cleaner or he's a CEO of a company, he'll be successful.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what he does as long as he's healthy. I said, so do not put that language in my son's head. I said, it's people like you that destroy people. So it was that kind of language that Joseph started listening to, because through...
So that's, sorry to interrupt you again. So that's interesting, isn't it? So you're angry, you're worried, but you'll defend him to the hilt, won't you?
Completely.
And you'll protect him.
Yeah.
So you're like a lioness, really, aren't you? These are my kids. That must have been really tough, especially with things like the suicide attempts and stuff like that.
Horrendous. He slashed his wrist.
Yeah.
A police officer saved his life when he slashed his wrist. He took his shirt off and wrapped it around Joseph's arm. That was before Leighton became a police officer.
Yeah.
So they've played a massive good part in our lives in keeping Joseph safe. Then again, when
who has the police?
The police.
It's not interesting that Leighton's
becomes a police officer.
Yeah.
It is, isn't it? It's strange how things pan out. And then when we found out so he come off the drugs at that time and he was clean for 6 months. Then he met a girl.
Was he in Liverpool?
Yeah, he's in Liverpool by this time.
Did he go back to London or not?
No, he never went back to London.
So he was all in Liverpool.
Yeah. So we met this girl. They were all both going to the NA and the AA together. And then they decided, when he came out, he went back in to rehab, but he did the 18 weeks this time. And then the girl, he started seeing him more often. And then he had his own flat and she had her own house, and they decided to move in together. And this is May 21. May 21. May 22, I think this was, actually. And he'd been clean for 8 months.
Was he working? Or?
He was working.
Yeah.
He said he wanted this job in Tesco and he was doing great. He said, it's no pressure, Mum. I love it. I'm earning a living and I love going to work. And he worked up in Runcorn. And me and my husband would drive him there and we'd pick him up and we'd bring him back. Didn't want him to get trains or anything.
Was he living at home?
He was living in his own place, so pick him up, and he had a normal life. And then he started going to this girl's a little bit more, and then he moved in with her, and he was starting a new job the next day. So it was her birthday on the 25th of May. On the Tuesday, the 25th, they went out for a drink for her birthday, and I begged him not to go. And he said, we're only going for a meal, coming back. And I rang him every night to say good night, and he never answered the phone, and I knew something was wrong. So the next morning, I was carried on with doing work, where I was working in a charity at the time with young people. And I couldn't work. I couldn't think, because I couldn't get hold of him.
You just knew there was something,
not right.
That mother's intuition.
I just knew. And then eventually, I texted her and she answered and said, he's in bed, I'll get him up. As he's starting his new job today, make sure you get him up. And within 15 minutes, he rang, thinking he was ringing her. And his words to me were, "Hi, babe, I've got that." And I knew. I just literally put the phone down and cried. But that was nothing. That was nothing. That was in the May. In the August, we found out he was taking crack cocaine. And this nearly destroyed me. But by October, we found out he was on heroin. And that completely obliterated me because I'd lost him. And when I say I was angry, Yeah. Because I thought, these people are living off my child. These people are using them to build their bank accounts, to drive around in the Range Rovers, because that's all they ever drive.
Like parasites.
Yeah, that's all they are. The wives are walking around with the lips done, the boobs done, the eyebrows, all on the back of my child's pain.
Yeah.
And I was angry. And I didn't know what to do, Steve, because I'd always had an answer, because I'd always been this person that's always been able to control situations. The worst pain for me was losing my mum.
Yeah.
And I never thought I'd get over that.
No.
But there was no pain like.
But everybody's got limitations, haven't they?
Yeah.
And it sounds like you had thing after thing after thing.
Yeah, it was just one after the other. And it was and it caused problems with my eldest son. Leighton has always tried to fix him. Like me, he's always wanted to try and fix him, and he couldn't, but Christopher couldn't deal with it. So it caused problems with our eldest son, and we lost contact for 2 years through all of Joseph's behaviour, and that destroyed me because...
And that's what people don't understand, are the impact of things like this on the whole family. They look at the person, don't they, and what's happened to the person, but then it will affect, there's a ripple effect, isn't there, across...
Yeah, of course there is.
You know, multiple family members.
Yeah, I mean, my Christopher... we'd always been best friends, and Gemma, and then we lost everything. I never seen my grandson for 2 years, and that totally. I wasn't there at the birth of my first granddaughter. Yeah, this caused so many problems for us as a family. It caused my husband to end up on heart tablets. You know, it didn't affect Leighton in his work, because Leighton is very focused in his job, and he absolutely thrives in his job. Yeah. It didn't affect him in that way, but it affected me and Barry in a massive way, that I ended up having to make sure my husband's mental health was all right, because his was affected. Then mine, some days I couldn't even get out of bed, but I knew I had to do something to stop these kids getting involved in this life. Absolutely. Because if I stop one young person becoming a drug dealer, I'm saving a family like mine from living the life what we've lived for the past 3 years, because it's been horrendous. Yeah. And
so I mean, I think we're gonna have to turn this into a 2-part podcast, I think, because there's so much good that you're doing with young people, and how I got to know you. So what we'll do is we'll finish this section of the podcast. That's okay. We'll bring you back, because we've got so many more questions. I'm sure people that are watching have got so many things that they want to.
Well, I'm in a meeting at 3:00, so I would love to stay, and you've got someone to come in. So there is a lot more to it, because there's so much happened in the space of time. So
what we'll do is, in the second part, is we'll talk about the good work that you're doing. But just to finish off then, so tell me about that day and what happened when he went into prison then.
Oh, we haven't even mentioned that yet, have we?
No.
But we found out on the 7th of September last year that he'd been arrested. He'd never been in trouble in his life until the August, because by now he's living on the streets and he's 5 stone. And that is what destroyed me. Yeah. It was just before then. What had happened, he rang me up and said, I'd just walked in the door. I live in Wales now, and I walked in the door and he rang and said, Mum, I promise I'm going to change. He'd got away from this girl. They were as bad as each other. I'm not blaming her, I'm not blaming him. They'd become codependent. And he got away and he said, Mum, I want to change. So I went and got him, drove all the way back to Liverpool, brought him home, and he was fine for 2 days. And on the second day, on the Sunday, he says, I can't do it. I've got to go back. And I begged and I pleaded. And we had to take him back to Liverpool. And as I was driving away, he was living behind the museum where the flyover had been cut off, at the back of there. And a few weeks before, we hadn't seen him. We'd often have to walk the streets looking for him if we hadn't seen him for 2 days. And 2 weeks before that, that's how we found out where he was. Me and Leighton found the tent he was living in. For a mum who absolutely, his name all over it. Yeah. It destroys you as a parent, and people are living off that. Yeah. People are building their lives on the back of that. Yeah. And Joseph couldn't see, because he was wrapped up in these drugs. He couldn't see what he was doing.
Is it fair to say that when you're a mum, and when you're a mum, you're a mother of children, babies, children, young adults. Is it true to say that when things like this are happening, you almost revert back to your parenting as a toddler, or as a young child, or as sounds like that kind of level of protection that you feel for them? Yeah, you know, it's amazing.
It's the thought that someone is taking advantage of him, because he's vulnerable, because he is, and he doesn't like to think he's vulnerable, but he is. The thought that someone was taking advantage of him really made me angry, and really hurt my heart, really, where I thought it was never going to heal. The only way that I can heal from this is by stopping other families going through it. I feel like it's a mission. I feel like I've got to do this, and it's strange how things turn out. But going back to the prison, we dropped him off, and I looked at my husband and I said, we're not going to see him again. We're not going to see him.
Yeah.
And I got a phone call on the Tuesday to say, on the Saturday, I took him to church and I begged God for a mum to wish her son to be dead.
Yeah.
I was wishing for that. I wanted him
just so he was
to be out of pain.
Yeah.
I didn't want anyone to take advantage of him. And that's a terrible burden for a mother to carry.
Yeah.
But I would have accepted that for him to be out of that pain.
Yeah.
And that Saturday, I begged God. I said, please, God, if there is a God, please take my Joseph.
Yeah. And he did, didn't he, in a way? So something happened. So a serious incident
I believe it was
happened.
divine intervention, Steve.
Yeah.
I believe that because he wouldn't have got that help.
No.
And now he's clean. You know, I'll go further into that in the next part, but he got arrested on the 7th of September. It was the worst thing that happened, but it was the best thing also because it's helped him to get to where he is today.
Yeah.
It's given him that time that he's needed to heal and find himself, because that's what people who fall into addiction are trying to find themselves, and that's how they're easily influenced and manipulated into go down the wrong path. And it's the same with young people who are manipulated and groomed into selling drugs. They don't know who they are, and they just want a sense of belonging. And that's what my Joseph did.
Well, you know, thank you so much for sharing that first part of the story with Joseph and the family and your upbringing. I can't wait to bring you back to talk more about some of the fantastic work that you've been doing.
Be a bit more upbeat next time.
But no, you know, and it's so emotional as well. And you know, I'm sure our viewers will really appreciate that story. And I think, you know, there'll be people at home as well that are going through or have been through similar situations. And people hearing your story, there'll be people going through it now. People hearing your story and hearing what you went through as a parent, as a person, as a woman, will be really kind of, you know, inspirational for people.
This is the thing. I did an interview with Panorama. I don't know whether you know Olivia Pratt-Corbell.
Yes.
The little girl who was murdered.
Yeah.
So I was approached by Panorama to follow me into schools for the work that I do. So they interviewed me, but they also interviewed me about Joseph's story.
Yeah.
And it, you know, the feedback that I got from that, it is powerful because so many people are suffering and struggling.
Yeah.
And drug dealers try to get you to be ashamed, to be ashamed of your child.
Parents don't know what to do they?
No.
They don't know what to do. Communities don't know what to do.
If I'm totally honest, I'd be more ashamed of my Joseph to being a drug dealer. I'd be more ashamed of that.
Than a drug
I would prefer him to be a drug addict every day of the week.
Yeah.
He's not killing people's kids.
Yeah. Well, as I say, thank you very much for coming to see us and for sharing your story. And like I say, I can't wait to get you in for the next part because, like you say, I do want to tell people about some of the fantastic work you're doing, and that's the inspirational stuff, I think, for you coming out of. Yeah. You're still not out of the other side of this yet.
No.
You're still in it, and for you to be doing the work that you're doing is amazing. So, but thank you very much. And
thanks for having me.
Oh, well, you know, you're welcome anytime. So, so thanks everybody. And like I say, I look forward to inviting Angela along again, you know, in the next week or two, just to share some of that other positive stories as well about how she's kind of dealt with what's happened to her and her family as well. So tune in next time. So thanks very much, everyone, and take care. Thanks everybody for listening to the Great in You podcast. We really appreciate your support. Please like, subscribe and share, and the podcast will be available on Spotify, YouTube and all other social media platforms. Thank you so much. See you next time.